The year is 2003. I'm 10 years old, and earlier in the year, I had just had an amazing gaming experience with Ape Escape 2, which, to be honest, it's its own video series that eventually we'll get to, but that's not going to be the subject of today's video. It's October or November, and I go over to my friend's house, who at the time was like the only person I knew that had a GameCube. So I get there, and he says he has this new game that he wants to show me, and that game is called Viewtiful Joe. But before we get into this story, be sure to hit that like button and that subscribe button to show that this type of video is something that you're interested in. And I'll be sure to do more if I can find the time. Be sure to leave a comment too as well, just so I know your thoughts on Viewtiful Joe, or video games in general. What other videos I should make like this, what games I should do, and just kind of your comments on how I should change these videos and whatnot. So this is something that's experimental, just trying to figure it out. So with that, let's get back to the video. So my friend puts in this game, and you get that classic GameCube startup. You know the one. It's almost as iconic as the PS1 startup sound, but GameCube one definitely is its own thing. So you then get introduced to who made the game, and I'm 10 years old. Do I really care who makes this game? No. I just want to see what this game is about that my friend is so excited to show me. So then it starts in with its intro sequence, and it's a classic black and white superhero style intro. At the time, I had no idea what it was mimicking. It was new to me. I thought that, again, I'm 10. And it's telling you about Captain Blue, and he's the hero of justice, and he always does the right thing. Then Joe comes in, and it's in color, and it's like it's all crazy, and it's a 10-year-old that spoke to me in so many ways, because he's just like old hero, the old thing, and then he's coming in and he's like, oh yeah, I can do that same thing, but I'm gonna do it cool. Do it with style. And so after that intro, then it just goes right into the game menu, and it's one of those things where it's like, I think they knew the audience that they were going for, because like it's such a simple menu. There's not much to it. It's just there, and you don't have many options. It's a console game as well, so you never really had that many options that we do now on console. But you have new game, load game, and options. And so you hit new game, and then you have kids and adult. And those are the level type, the difficulty types. And to be honest, being a movie themed game, like, that is very clever, and that was very smart to me. And you knew that like adult was going to be for adults and kids were going to be for kids. So naturally we would pick kids because we were kids. But once you pick the difficulty, it starts the video that tells you the story. And basically, Joe and his girlfriend Sylvia are at the movies watching an old movie called Captain Blue. And Joe is really into the movie, and Sylvia is really into Joe. She's wanting to make out, she's wanting to get frisky, she's wanting to, do everything but watch the movie. But Joe wants to watch this movie. And while they're arguing and while they're starting to get frisky, the hero of the movie, Captain Blue, loses his fight and is defeated. Then out of nowhere, the villain reaches through the screen and steals Sylvia. And Captain Blue's giant robot that he had in the sequence that they were showing gets knocked from the movie and into the theater. And it then picks up Joe and brings him into the movie. And then that's when the gameplay starts. And you drop down and it starts the tutorial. However, I didn't get to play it. I had to leave to go home. And for some reason, every time I went over to my friend's house for a year, we never played the game again. I don't know why. It doesn't make sense to me in my head that I never played this game. You know, I saw the intro sequence, I saw the start of the game basically, and then left. And that was it. I never attempted to play it again at his house. And I know I went over to his house several times. Like, we were at each other's houses all the time. So it didn't make any sense. And so, but it wouldn't be until 2004 when it came on the PS2 that I was finally able to experience this game. I didn't know a PS2 version was going to be made. I didn't know that it was a possibility, and I partly had forgotten about the game. It had been over a year. And so finally, one day in August, you know, I'm 11 now, it's been a year. I walked into Family Video, which, if you don't know what a Family Video is, it's like a Blockbuster, but smaller franchise, more local, more family owned and operated, but basically exactly the same thing as a Blockbuster. And they had this deal where you could rent games for cheap, and if you get so many games, you get them for so many days, that sort of thing. And so I go in there, and like most times, I had no idea what I was gonna rent. You know, you just look at the boxes, and you know, you're just like, oh, you know, maybe I'll rent this, or maybe I'll rent that. You know, this looks cool, this looks cool. And I'm looking around, and there it is. There's Viewtiful Joe, this game that I had seen and I knew about, but had no idea it was going to come out on PS2. I always saw it on the GameCube, but I didn't have a GameCube. So first you're like, oh, this is this is a mistake. Because, you know, at the time, it wasn't easy to know what games were coming out and when and what for, and that stuff was probably on the internet in some way, but I don't think I had dial-up until a few years after this, or really good internet in general, or knew how to use the internet. It was different times. So I walk in, there's Viewtiful Joe for the PS2. I'm thinking, this has to be a mistake. I didn't know this, you know, this is a GameCube game. I take it up to the counter, and sure enough, you know, hey, here it is. It really is on the PS2. So finally, after a year of being teased with this game, I'm finally going to be able to experience what I had a feeling was going to be such a fun and interesting game. So I pay for the rental and I run home, because the Family Video in my town was like right down the street from my house. So like, not a big deal to go down there, like literally a block. Get the game, I'm running home. I get to my room, I put it in my PlayStation, it loads up. It has the Capcom logo, and it's got the Clover Studios logo. Clover. and then it gets to the Team Viewtiful logo. And then it freezes. I waited a year to finally play this game, basically, and it freezes right at the start of this game. And so, you know, I did what anybody would do. You take the disc out and you look at it for scratches and you try to clean it off and do all that. I put it back in, it freezes again, right at the same spot. So mad, you're so angry, you rented this game, it's not working, you waited a year for this isn't right. I ran back to Family Video and I'm like, hey, do you have another copy? Like, what can you do? This thing's not working. And they're like, no, we don't have another copy, but we can put it in our cleaning machine and see if that fixes the issue or whatever. Put it in the cleaning machine, put it back into their case. I run back home, I load it in, and it still freezes. So with massive disappointment, I have to rent something else. I think at the time, like, Mega Man Command Mission had just came out. I liked Mega Man. I didn't know what I didn't know what this thing was about. Viewtiful Joe compared to Command Mission. Command Mission is a pile of dog crap on a good day. I was missing out. I was missing out on Viewtiful Joe, and this hilarious situation, like, it almost sounds like it's from a movie, but like this is like that's how it happened, and I'm trying to play this game for like a year. I can't get it to work. I have to wait longer. Obviously, eventually I get my chance to play the game. When I finally did get to play it, the second game was out, and I think I rented both the first game and the second game at the same time. I don't know how many months later that was. I think Viewtiful Joe came out in August, and then the second game came out in like December or November or something like that. It might have even been the next year that I finally got to play Viewtiful Joe 1. It was just crazy. Like telling the story, I still can't believe like that's the experience I had trying to play this game. With that silly story out of the way, let's get into how the game came about. What is this game? What I think about it in the end. Spoiler, obviously, I like the game or I wouldn't be making this video, but I'll just talk about some of my thoughts and feelings on the game at the end. But let's get into who made this game and how it was created. So Viewtiful Joe was developed under Capcom by Team Viewtiful, as well as Clover Studios, which Clover Studios is basically just Team Viewtiful, but it's a sub-studio created under Capcom. It's the same team. It's the same people. But Clover hadn't been established yet when the GameCube version of the game first came out. But by the PS2 port and the second game, Clover was the main studio, and it's the studio that appears on those versions. Clover Studio also made Okami and a game that I've never heard of called God Hand. Maybe one day I'll check it out. I have no idea, but that's just another game that they're credited for. And Clover Studio also is what led to the creation of Platinum Games. So you could say without Viewtiful Joe, you wouldn't have Bayonetta, and you definitely wouldn't have the Wonderful 101. I mean, basically Wonderful 101 is almost a clone of Viewtiful Joe, just in a different way, but the characterization of Wonderful 101 is like identical. Viewtiful Joe is directed by Hideki Kamiya, who at Capcom previously worked on Resident Evil 1 and 2, as well as the Devil May Cry series, which you can see a lot of the Devil May Cry stuff in Viewtiful Joe. It was produced by Asushi Inaba, if I'm pronouncing that right. Japanese names are very hard for me to pronounce, who worked on Ace Attorney and Steel Battalion while at Capcom. Viewtiful Joe, while in development, was called Red Hot Man, but due to copyright in the US, it had to be changed because it conflicted with the Red Hot Chili Peppers, which personally I think that's kind of silly because They don't even sound close to the same. The original development team only consisted of 6 people, and they were supposed to work under a 12-month deadline. But as work continued, the size of the team grew, and the development ended up taking 21 months. Game was conceived as a staff-focused project aimed at increasing the skill of the people that were on the team, specifically the director, Kamiya. Inaba is quoted as saying, "We wanted to create a challenging game with stunning visuals and fluid gameplay. As a lifelong fan of superheroes, Inaba's aim was to combine traditional Japanese tokusatsu with American comic books. The character design, which was created by Kumiko Sukane, again, I'm really sorry, I'm bad at Japanese names, were inspired specifically by the 1960s and 70s Japanese costumes tokusatsu television, such as Kamen Rider and Ultraman. Graphically, the game adopted a 2D side-scrolling style mixed with 3D cel-shaded animation. Despite many games in the then modern industry shying away from the 2D graphical formats, Inaba said, "We have been able to breathe new life into the genre because we are using a new stylistic way that hasn't been seen before." The team chose the GameCube as its platform because of their target audience and because it lent itself well to Viewtiful Joe's gameplay. It is said that director Kamiya based Joe's run animation on how he got to work, and the bosses of the game are based on Capcom executives. That to me is very funny. I think it's important that directors of games and creators of games put a little bit of themselves and put a little bit of real life into the games, because then it shows that they really are dedicated to this and to what they're working on. Kamiya really does love this series, and it's come out recently that he does want to finish the trilogy, because it was originally supposed to be a trilogy. I hope that he does get that opportunity, and I hope that they get the opportunity to remaster these games for modern consoles so more people can play them, because right now you have to find the PS2 or the GameCube versions of these games and play them. I think you can see the passion these directors and developers have for this game, and you definitely can feel it when you play it. But when it comes to the PS2 port, they did add a few things that were not in the GameCube release. For one, they added an easier mode than the kids mode that I had mentioned in my story, called Sweet, as the game is very hard on adult. Like if I'm playing on adult, like it makes me mad just because of how hard it is, and it's just like I'm trying to get through this game, and adult is hard. It's gonna be hard, because if you lose your lives, you have to start the whole level over again, and you don't get that many lives, and like if you're playing on adult, you don't get that many hits, and can be very difficult, can be grueling and hard. And so I appreciate that they put in the sweet mode for that, because when I was playing through it for this video to remind myself of some of the parts, having that sweet mode was definitely a time saver. I was able to beat the game pretty quickly. They also added Dante as a playable character after beating the game with Joe, which is fun, because he does have different gameplay. He uses a sword, he has his guns, has his own girl that he's saving, has his own dialogue with the bosses. So it is kind of this second game that you get with Dante, because it is all different stuff. The bosses are the same, and the story is the same, but he just has different dialogue and different interactions with everybody. And I'm glad that they put that in there for the PS2 port. And it also kind of shows that Capcom had faith in this game, because they're putting one of their top characters at the time in this other game that's sort of kind of a side project. They were taking a lot of risks with this game, and then putting their character, their kind of focus right now into this other game. It could have kind of shows that they did have faith in Kamiya and the Viewtiful Joe story. So for this next part, we'll get into what the game is, what's the gameplay like, what's the story, and really I'm just gonna take it from the wiki, because I think it sums up the plot perfectly well, and there's no reason to rewrite what's already done so well. So yeah, let's get into what Viewtiful Joe is about. So while Joe and his girlfriend Sylvia are at the theater during a date, Sylvia is kidnapped by the movie's antagonist and taken into the world of the movies called Movie Land. Joe is able to follow Sylvia after being picked up and taken into Movie Land by Robot 6 Machine. Inside the movie, Joe must rescue Sylvia from the evil Shadow, the game's organization of villains. To help him, Captain Blue entrusts him with a V-Watch, telling Joe to transform into a superhero upon saying Henshin, which is Japanese for transformation. But Joe made it into his personal catchphrase, Henshin a go-go, baby. So after a plot like that, how could you not want to play this game, especially if you're into Power Rangers, Transformers, which at 10, I was very into both. I think at the time, Power Rangers was in its Ninja Storm series, so as you can imagine, Viewtiful Joe fits into that, kicking and punching, and he's got robots, and it's like this whole thing converged perfectly at this time. So as for the gameplay itself, it is at its surface a 2.5D side scroller like we had mentioned earlier. It's a beat 'em up game that just kind of iterates on stuff like Streets of Rage and Golden Axe and stuff like that. So now let's get into the actual gameplay, how the game plays and all that. And as mentioned earlier, it's a 2D side scroller. Nowadays it would be called 2.5D since it does use 3D elements. And then it basically is just a movie inspired Streets of Rage, Double Dragon, Golden Axe style game, but I would say it's more complex than that. And we'll get into those mechanics as to why it's more complex. And again, I'm just gonna take information from the wiki because it does a very good job of explaining what the gameplay is. Viewtiful Joe's gameplay is very unusual and draws inspiration from classic side-scrolling brawlers such as River City Ransom and Double Dragon. Like I had mentioned earlier, thanks Mr. Wiki. Joe has no blocking moves when fighting. He can only dodge by jumping or ducking. Usually by successfully jumping or ducking, the foe that attacked him will be dazed, leaving the enemy wide open for attack. Joe has 3 VFX, Viewtiful Effects, powers, which are designed to emulate camera tricks seen in movies such as The Matrix. Slow causes Joe's attacks to be more powerful, as well as increasing his reflexes and giving him the ability to dodge most attacks. While in slow, striking a dazed foe sets up all enemies on the screen for a chain reaction, causing all points occurred during that duration of the slow to be multiplied by the number of enemies struck. If used properly, slow will accumulate a very large number of points due to the multiplier effect. If Joe is attacked while in slow, he will automatically do a dodge move, but you'll lose a large chunk of the remaining VFX power. The next power is called Mach Speed, which allows Joe to run at an incredible speed, creating multiple after images of himself when he unleashes a flurry of attacks, and can cause his attacks to envelop himself in a temporary heat shield, which will render him immune to flame attacks, and set other enemies on fire when struck. When used in tandem with slow, Mach Speed only increases Joe's walking speed while in slow. It also allows rapid punches to be used by holding the attack button. The final power-up that Joe gets is called Zoom. Zoom gives Joe access to a new group of attacks and will power up his normal attacks as well as dazzling all of the lesser foes in the proximity to Joe into paralysis. Joe's punch is replaced with the Red Hot 100, a flurry of fists, different from the Mach Speed. Joe's kick is replaced with an energetic spin kick, where he levitates in the air and he spins repeatedly. Jumping causes Joe to corkscrew in the air, damaging anything in his path. If the player zooms in while in the air, Joe will careen towards the ground, feet first, sending shockwaves out from the point of impact. All of these are used in combat and to solve games puzzles. Two of Joe's attack powers can be used at the same time. Slow and zoom, Mach speed and zoom, slow and Mach speed. When using slow and Mach speed together, Joe moves at a normal speed while everything else is slowed down. The most powerful attack in the game is the Slow Zoom Red Hot 100. Slow Zoom Red Hot 100 is done by enabling slow zooming and then punching your enemy. Using Mach speed while attacking speeds the attack up slightly. All of the VFX powers are required to get past at least one area of the game. Joe has a VFX meter which empties as he uses his powers. If it runs out, Joe reverts to his normal state until the first bar of the meter refills. In his normal state, Joe takes double damage, has weaker attacks, loses the double jump ability, and can no longer use VFX powers. The bar can be extended by collecting various film canisters throughout the stages. For every 50 collected, a small extension of a third of the length of the initial VFX bar is added up to 5 extensions. Picking up small blue juice cans gives small boosts of VFX bar and can extend beyond the length of the VFX bar available. Large blue bottles fill up a significantly large portion, and red bottles give you infinite VFX power for a limited time. So as you can see, Joe has a plethora of different attacks and approaches and styles and all of this other stuff. You also have power-ups that you can buy. You can get the boomerang, which if you hold punch, you throw a boomerang out. Then you can get the pink bombs, which if you hold kick, you pull out this bomb and you can throw the bomb. You get these other special moves that you can get that kind of add to your combos. Buy more health, you can buy faster regen of VFX. There's all of these little things that you can buy with the points that you gather by doing, stylistic fighting and optimized fighting in the game. So the better you are at fighting enemies, not only are you defeating them faster, but you're also gaining a lot more points if you're better at using the powers that you have at hand in their proper order. I don't want to go into much more of the details of the game's plot or the ending or anything like that. So I don't want to spoil it. I want you to watch this and then I want you to go and play this game. Now that you know who made the game, portions of the game, what the game is about, now let's go into what I think about the game. So I think this game is one of the best beat 'em up games that has ever been made. I'm not really into beat 'em up games. I didn't grow up really playing those too much. Played Growl a lot. That was about it. But this one really, Viewtiful Joe combines so much that I loved at the time and still do. I mean, Power Rangers is still cool. Transformers is still cool. Giant Robots are still cool. That never goes away. The gameplay is exactly what they set out to make. A smooth, responsive, great fighting game. And the story is interesting and the game can be difficult if you want that achievement. And for the game to take longer if you want to take your time and really struggle through it, or maybe you don't struggle through it because you're better at this game than I am. I don't know, but that's just me. But if you want to burn through this game and kind of play it as fun arcadey style game and you just want some good old fun, then you can put it on the easy mode and play through it within a couple hours. It also kind of got me interested in games that had cel-shaded graphics, because at the time kind of was where the industry was going. I mean, they made Viewtiful Joe and Okami that way, and then Nintendo did Wind Waker that way. And I think it's a style that is obviously still being used because Breath of the Wild is kind of an iteration on that. And I think games that use that cel shading correctly still look good to this day, because this game still looks good all these years later. And honestly, there's only a few cel shaded games that I don't like that much because they give me headaches, and Borderlands 1 is one of those games for some reason. But Borderlands 3 is fine. Like it's it's weird. I'm weird like that. It also kind of got me interested in indie games, because even though it had Capcom's backing and budget, it feels like a passion project. And it is a passion project. And I would say that Platinum Games does a good job at making you feel like the games that they're making, they're passionate about, because they are passionate about. I would say, at least for me, that Viewtiful Joe allowed me to trust in these indie games, and with that I've been able to experience all of these great indie games that have come out. If you have yet to experience this game, I highly recommend finding a way to play it. Unfortunately, like I mentioned earlier, there is no port of this game into a modern console, so you gotta find the PS2 or GameCube version, or you're gonna have to emulate it. I have the GameCube version. I had the PS2 version. Emulating it's not bad. It runs pretty well. You just got to get the settings right. I actually emulated the PS2 version, play this to refresh my memory of the game and play through it, since it has that sweet mode, and my consoles are in storage right now. It gave me some trouble, but eventually I got the emulation figured out and was able to get it to work. I would say the GameCube version is easier to emulate, just because the Dolphin emulator is just such a good emulator. I recommend the PS2 version only because if you get that lower difficulty, but you also get the opportunity to play as Dante at the end after beating it. And I think it's worth playing through it twice, once as Joe and once as Dante, just because it really is a different experience, and it does add so much to the game. And you play it on a harder difficulty as Dante and all that, so figure out the game mechanics at a lower level. So yeah, I think it's definitely worth it. I don't believe in doing ratings, so I'm not really gonna do that, because I think ratings are very it's just one person's 5 is another person's 10. It's just arbitrary and useless. So I'll just say that you should play it, and you should play it when there's a lull of games and you're trying to find a game to play. I think if you play this game, it'll lead you down to the path of other games that you will also enjoy. And so it's this kind of chain reaction of, oh, I played Viewtiful Joe, I can play Viewtiful Joe too, and then, oh, what are games that are like Viewtiful Joe that other people have made, or what other games have Platinum Games made that I haven't played? I think it's just a good starting point to kick you off into good direction of games. To Capcom, please let them make Viewtiful Joe 3. Please port the first 2 games to the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X. It's time. You did it with Okami. Let Platinum Games do it. It'll make you money. I mean, Capcom, you've been making great decisions for a while now. I don't know what happened, but all this, like, at one point Capcom was like kind of and then now they're like, whoa. Whoa, you did that? So I think now's the time. I think it's a good time. It's been long enough to not have a Viewtiful Joe game, and I would like to see how the story ends, and I'd like to see Viewtiful Joe in 4K, 60 FPS, 120 FPS, looking sharp, looking cool, and having fun. Because that's really, at the end of the day, that's what these games are. Just straight up fun. Yeah, I mean, I'd pay for it. I'd pay $70. I don't care. Like, I'll pay for it. I want this game so bad. Yeah, that's just a little video about Viewtiful Joe and how I came to play it, how it came to be, what the game is about, and what I think of the game. And if you like videos like this and you're interested in more videos like this, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and go down below and leave a comment about your experience with Viewtiful Joe. If you've played Viewtiful Joe, encourage other people to play this game and get the word out of this fantastic, fun little game that kind of sparked one of the best video game creator. I mean, Platinum Games is huge. They have so many good games, some bad ones, but they do have so many good games. I think it's a fun game for anybody. So yeah, leave a comment. Talk about your story with Viewtiful Joe. If you've never played Viewtiful Joe, why haven't you? Write that down too. I want to know. Tell me how I can make these videos better, what I can do differently. Did you have a similar renting experience than I did, maybe with a similar game or the same game? Get it home, it's scratched, and you're like, ah. Maybe some ideas for some other videos I can do. I'll probably pull from games that I've had experience with personally as a kid first, but eventually I'm going to run out of stuff to do and talk about, and I always like playing new games, so I can talk about new experiences. So yeah, just get down there, get wild. Do let me know what you think of this. I'll see you in the next video.